They're live.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Planning Commission for the City of Santa Fe, our first monthly meeting of December 3rd, 2020. And this will be the last meeting of the year because the next meeting is postponed. Melissa, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, Chair Hyatt,
Here.
Vice Chair Hogan,
Here.
Commissioner Clow,
Here.
Commissioner Faulkner,
Here.
Commissioner Garcia,
Here.
Commissioner Gutierrez,
Here.
Commissioner Lawrence,
Here.
Commissioner Satania.
Here.
Mr. Chair, a quorum is present.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you join me with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the flag for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I see on the agenda, first of all, that we're postponing the November 19 minutes. And we're postponing the third case, the Camino de Cruz Blanca Telecommunications Facility. Are there any other changes from staff?
There are no changes.
Any changes from the commission? Motion, please.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, I didn't hear the first second, but we'll give Commissioner Clow the second. Call the commission on the vote, please.
Yes, Commissioner Clow,
Yes.
Commissioner Faulkner,
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia,
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez,
Yes.
Commissioner Hogan,
Yes.
Commissioner Lawrence,
Yes.
Commissioner Satania.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
All right, so we've adopted the agenda. The next is the approval of the minutes for November 5, 2020. Are there any changes from staff?
Changes. Thank you.
Any changes from the commission? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Clow seconds.
Poll the commission,
Um,
please.
Yes, Commissioner Clow,
Yes.
Commissioner Faulkner,
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia,
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez,
Yes.
Commissioner Hogan,
Yes.
Commissioner Lawrence,
Yes.
Commissioner Satania. Commissioner Satania?
Yes. I
Okay,
saw a
great.
yes.
Thank you. The motion has been, the motion has been approved.
Try that again, Commissioner Satania.
Yes.
Yes, a little louder, please.
Yes.
All right. The next issue is the findings and conclusions from the appeal of case 2020-2789, 1298 Lahania Lane Lot Line Adjustment. Any changes from the staff?
Chair, no changes.
Any changes from the commissioners? Motion, please.
Motion to approve. Commissioner Faulkner.
Commissioner Clow seconds.
Melissa?
Yes. Commissioner Clow,
Yes.
Commissioner Clow, Commissioner
Yes.
Faulkner,
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia, Commissioner Garcia.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Gutierrez,
Yes.
Commissioner Hogan,
Yes.
Commissioner Lawrence,
Yes.
Commissioner Satania.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
All right, thank you. We have no old business. We'll move to new business. These two cases should be taken together. They were postponed from October 1st, 2020. And Mr. Esquivel, Mr. Siebert, and I see that Frank Herdman is on as well. My intention is to give each side a few minutes to sum up and not to dwell, but we're not going to have a public hearing. So this will be closing arguments, and take the time that you need, but try not to. I think most of us remember that case from October, but in case you want to bring up the highlights, let me know. But all right, so we'll start with you, Mr. Esquivel.
Mr. Chair, this is case 2020-2499, 1623 Camino de las Cruz Blanca variance. to 1472B5, James Siebert and Associates, agent for Alton Walpole owner. They request a variance to subsection 1472B5 for calculation of dwellings within the mountainous and difficult terrain. This is to eliminate the 0.75 reduction in density from the calculation of density. The property is approximately 5.63 acres, zoned R1. Property also has no utilities, which reduces the calculation of dwelling units to 0.4 as opposed to 0.1, with a net lot area of 2.5 acres per single family dwelling, and is located within the Suburban Archaeological Review District, an area mapped as mountainous and difficult terrain. The second variance is case 2020-2592. It's got the same area locations. However, this is a variance to 14921 design criteria for street types to allow 9 dwelling units on a lot access driveway. The land use department recommends denial of case 2020-2499, and we recommend denial of case 2020-2592. There are 3 motions that are required as follows: approve or deny case 2020-2499-1623, Communidad de Cruz Blanca variance to 1471B5, subject to technical corrections of approval. And those technical corrections are for fire protections in the event you do approve them, otherwise they just fall off. Number 2, approve or deny case 2020-2592-1623 Communidad de Cruz Blanca variance to table 14721. Approve or deny findings of facts and conclusions of law for case 2020-2499 and case 2020-2592-1623 Communidad de Cruz Blanca variances, which are presented in Exhibit B. Mr. Chair, I believe that this is still pretty fresh in the commission's eyes. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. The staff is still recommending denial of both variances. With that, I'll sit for any questions.
All right, thank you. Mr. Siebert, who do you anticipate is going to testify tonight?
Well, I'll be testifying, and
Yeah.
Frank is gonna act as backup here in case I forget something.
All right. And anybody else?
No,
All right. So if you'll be sworn,
Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Right. My name is Jim Siebert. My address is 915 Mercer, Santa Fe. And just to kind of go back, discuss a little how the last meeting ended, there was discussion by staff that, well, if you would do a family transfer, that this would comply with the city code, at least relative to the issue on difficult and mountainous terrain. And actually the problem with that we have checked with our client, and it just the family situation is such that that's really not an option. The one thing we've done is I sent a letter, hope you all had a chance to read it. If you don't, I can pull it up on the screen and share it with you, about the conditions that we'd be willing to have imposed on the property. And those would consist of maximum dwelling size of 2,400 square feet of heated area, designation of the buildable area on the plat to ensure that any development does not occur on slopes exceeding 20%. And actually the typical standard is you can build on slopes 20 to 30%, providing 1/2 of the structure is on slopes of 20%. Well, we're making it more restrictive than that. They'd have to be on slopes of 20%. And if deemed important or consideration by the planning commission, Mr. Walpole would agree to share the well that's existing on the property between the 2 houses. The covenants on the property on the lot and subdivision would require that the new homeowner participate in the shared cost to maintain the access roads. Installation of an on-site treatment system must comply with all requirements of the New Mexico Environment Department, and that a buffer would be provided on the north side and east side of the property to protect existing vegetation, maintaining the visual barriers from the city open space. And a lot of those were, I think we can take that down. A lot of those were a reflection of the comments that were made by the planning commission members at the last meeting. And actually what's happened in the meantime with regard to the additional lot that we're requesting to be surfaced off this roadway that wouldn't comply with a 38-foot road width. There have been improvements made. They've actually put on additional base course. They've created they've widened the existing turnouts to provide a better access for fire and emergency vehicles. I think those are, and I think the human element of this is that Mr. Walpole purchased this lot over 30 years ago. And at that time, there was no requirement. There was no ordinance dealing with difficult and mountainous terrain. He could have subdivided his property. And in fact, as you may not recall, I do have a drawing of it here we can share, but the property is surrounded by lots that are smaller than the lots that he's proposing. And in terms of setting a precedent, there really is no precedent. I mean, there's already a substantial number of lots in the area. This would be isolated between those lots and city property. So there's really nowhere to go. This is the end of the line. I think with that, I'll see if I missed anything, and Frank would like to make a few comments.
No, will you move Mr. Herdman into participants or panelists, please?
Chair, he's already here.
Okay. Frank, is there anything you'd like to add, sir? So you need to be sworn.
I swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. Would you give us your name and address, please?
My name is Frank Herdman. My address is 123 East Marcy Street, Suite 200. Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I'll be very brief. I submit that this is a classic case for a variance. We have a situation in which a property owner purchased a property. He owned it for many, many years. He was entitled to subdivide the lot until the government unilaterally imposed a restriction that now prohibits it. As a consequence, he's been denied a substantial value of his property as a result of that restriction. In contrast, all of the surrounding neighbors were able to take advantage of their ability to subdivide their lots before that restriction was imposed. The applicant has now come forward with proposed restrictions that the net consequence of which would result in a development that has less impact than what the property owner can do unilaterally by building a casita or a guest house on the same lot. And so this is a net benefit overall and addresses, I submit, all of the potential detrimental environmental impacts and other impacts that were identified by staff as the policy justification for the difficult and mountainous terrain restrictions. And so we respectfully request that you grant the variances. I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Herdman. Anything else, Dan?
Mr. Chair, no. I think the report that was written by the staff has everything you need.
All right, let's open it up to questions from commissioners. Commissioner Faulkner.
Give me 1 second. Okay, so Dan, could you, I just want to, for the record, have the other lots been allowed to subdivide since or prior to the changes that were made that affect this lot?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Faulkner, there have been no lot splits that have occurred after the regulation changes that I'm aware of.
And
So this would be the first lot split that is occurring after the annexation amendment to the density of 0.4 that has occurred.
okay, and then just one more point of clarification. Could you briefly go into why the zoning reflects what it reflects with regard to the utilities and not, and this lot not being on city utilities? Is there some kind of safety or environmental concerns around overpopulating some of the regions that are in this zoning?
When the city adopted the standards that address the utility issues, the county, most of the properties in the county were on wells. So if we maintained the city zoning for those areas that were on wells, we would deplete their water resources because we'd start increasing density in areas that really couldn't support that kind of development. So the city adopted regulations to accommodate properties that didn't or weren't on city utilities, whether they had one utility or whether they had both utilities. This particular property has no utilities and is operating on well and septics. It's also in the mountainous and difficult terrain. So the combination of the two regulations prohibit the applicant from dividing the property and would prohibit anybody else under the same rules.
And then one other question, when this was in the county, were the county, I guess, laws or code, was it similar to what the city adopted at the time?
I'm not sure how long this particular property has been in the city. When the city adopted the regulations that regulated water, it affected all properties within the city of Santa Fe. And I believe that was Spazo, and I have the actual name for that. I believe it's, if you'll give me a few minutes to pull that up, I wasn't.
Chair, Commissioners, if I may, I don't actually think this was a Spazo annexation. I think it was before Spazo.
This was not a Spazo annexation, but the regulations affected everybody citywide. So there are many properties that are affected because they don't have water and sewer. An ordinance establishing subdivision, plating, planning, and zoning rules within the presumptive city limits. Now, when that was adopted, it didn't just isolate properties within the annexation area. It was an ordinance that affected everybody citywide. So anybody who doesn't have water or sewer is going to be affected by that particular note within that section. This is one of those properties, even though it's not out of the annexation areas. And when you compound that with the mountainous and difficult terrain, they lost the ability to divide that property because they qualify under both situations.
And Chair and Commissioners, if I may, so the water and sewer extension provision was, at first when Spazo was adopted, if you didn't have city utilities, you could have, and you were zoned R1, you could have 1 unit per acre, right? But then we made an amendment after we realized we did a subdivision in the Spazo area, I think around 2012, that required that if you wanted to subdivide to your density that you're awarded through zoning, so 1 unit per acre in this case, then you would have to have city water or sewer, or both, or extend them to get that density. The provision of the mountainous and difficult terrain predated the SPAZO. That was actually it was actually before that. So that regulation, which further limits the density for lots in this area, was a provision way before SPAZO and the SPAZO annexation.
All right, thank you, staff. That's it. That's all I have, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Faulkner. I'm looking to see who else has questions. I'm waiting patiently.
Chair, Commissioner Satenya has his hand
I'm
up.
sorry. I didn't see it on the screen over here, Commissioner. Commissioner Satenya.
I'd like to make a motion.
All right.
I move to deny case number 2020-2499, 1623 Camino del Cruz Blanca variance to 14-72B5, subject to technical corrections of approval, Exhibit A. And also, I move to deny case number 2020-2592, 1623 Camino del Cruz Blanca variance to table 14-7.21. And I also move to approve the findings and facts of conclusions of law for case 2020-2499 and case number 2020-2592, 1623 Camino del Cruz Blanca variances presented in Exhibit B.
I second all three motions.
All right. Commissioner Garcia, I see your hand. Do you have a question, sir?
Just before we take a vote, thank you, Mr. Chair. Question to staff that I should have asked before we did the motion, but this might make my vote go one way or the other. When the regulations were changed for this area, when was that?
Chair, Commissioners, the regulations for the connection to sewer and water, I believe, was in 2012 to 2014, somewhere in that time frame. I don't have the exact date in front of me.
My question was more towards the ability to do this lot split before the ruling of annexation and the splitting of property and everything.
Chair, Commissioner Garcia. I think Dan knows what date that we put the mountainous and difficult terrain ordinance was.
Just more or less.
I'm not quite sure what date it was. I know that when SPAZO was originally adopted, it didn't include that particular water issue. That ordinance came in maybe 6 months later when we realized that we had to do something for those areas with wells and septics that were being annexed. So they weren't very far apart. SPAZO was adopted in 2009. And I'm not quite sure when they actually made the amendment to the ordinance to restrict water density for those that are not connected to the city utilities.
Chair, Commissioners, let me just chime in there. I think it was 2005, 2006, around that time frame when they put the mountainous and difficult terrain provisions in the code. And Dan, I don't know if you had researched that. I was asking more about the mountainous and difficult terrain when that regulation was put in place.
No,
Commissioner Garcia, you have the floor, sir.
And to follow up with that, was there ever in the ability for a landowner to have some sort of a grandfather period to say, I missed my opportunity to split it. Now I can have so much time to go ahead and do that without any penalty, or the rule was the rule at the time?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Garcia, legal nonconforming or grandfathering occurs when an ordinance is adopted and then those properties or structures or zonings that do not comply with the current ordinance are considered grandfathered or legal nonconforming. They carry that bubble. Many applicants will come in for building permits and they'll submit an application, and then there's going to be this protective bubble, even though the ordinance was adopted. They're on this train that allowed them to meet the previous ordinance because they made that application. But if they fail to make an application, the ordinance is adopted and then it becomes effective, then they're just legal non-conforming. They don't get to go back to the previous ordinance and say, hey, look, I missed my chance. Please review me under the old ordinance. Council has already adopted a new ordinance and we have to follow that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Vice Chair Hogan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I appreciate a chance to have some more discussion. I realize there's a motion on the table But I feel like Mr. Herdman made some pretty compelling arguments, and I'm not sure in my own mind why this isn't a hardship, because clearly the surrounding neighbors all got the benefit of their being able to split their lot because they did so prior to the date when that was prohibited. And the applicant has made significant concessions that address the environmental impacts of another house in this area, i.e. adding a package treatment plant, which eliminates nitrates and things that you try to avoid in these areas. The shared water well is another one. And the fact that they're limiting the area, this is not a case where we're being asked if we can disturb steep slopes to get a road to it. There's no grading impacts, and the limit to the size of the footprint seems sensitive to fitting the site or the house on the site. I just feel like we're being a little bit rushed to emotion on that. I wanted to put those my concerns on the table. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Esquivel.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, the variance criteria changed in 2012. So while the variance criteria may have allowed a lot more flexibility when it came to hardship, the variance criteria now is based on special and unique circumstances. And the hard part is this particular variance doesn't really qualify for all of the variance criteria because it's not intended to just waive an ordinance standard just because you want to. You have to have unique and special circumstances in order to qualify for a variance. And this one just did not do it.
Well, I just submit that the history of the way the site was developed and subdivided created a unique circumstance that would not be replicated anyplace else. It's a 40-year history on the property. The applicant did not exercise his right to subdivide the property when the other neighbors did. And so that's pretty unusual. And I don't think it would be easy to replicate elsewhere.
I'd also like to add, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, that the addition or the conditions that the applicant wishes to place on the property really have no bearing on the variance whatsoever.
Commissioner Gutierrez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to read something prepared from for Commissioner Garcia, and this is from Mr. Siebert. It says, Mr. Walport bought the subject property and lot in 1977. The ordinance adopting standards for difficult and mountain terrain were not adopted until 1987. So that's something prepared by Mr. Siebert, Commissioner Garcia. I don't know if that helps or not. Mr. Siebert, Mr. Herdman, I'm looking at the criteria for variances, and I don't see anything that really answers why a variance should be granted. Is there anything you may have left out or anything solid that you would have put in there that's not there?
I can.
Go ahead, Frank.
Mr. Siebert, in the materials that were presented, went through each of the variance criteria last time, and they're also in the materials. So I would call the commission's attention to the last presentation where he went through each of those exhaustively and explaining how each of them were met. I'd leave it to Mr. Siebert to review those, but it's our position that we've satisfied each and every one of those. We could certainly take the time to go through all of those again if that's the wish of the commission.
No, that's fine, Mr. Herdman. I just, in my opinion, they're answered but not satisfied, and so that's why I was asking. Thank you.
Mr. Siebert, do you want to add anything, sir?
I think historically, it's always gone back to, the fact of a hardship. And I think the hardship in this case is that he is so out of line with what has occurred in that particular area. So it seems to me that, the broader consideration is that, there's a certain almost injustice that's occurred as a result of this.
Okay. Seeing no other hands raised, I think we're ready to vote. Melissa? This is the vote on supporting the staff recommendation for denial. So a yes vote is to deny the application for variances in both cases.
Okay, Commissioner Clow,
yes,
Commissioner Faulkner,
Yes,
Commissioner Garcia,
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez,
Yes.
Commissioner Hogan,
No.
Commissioner Lawrence,
Yes.
Commissioner Satania.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank you, members of the commission.
Case number 3 is postponed. Case number 4, 2020-2775, 1620 Agri-Fria Street, the Romero final subdivision. Mr. Logston.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. Yes, so once again, 2020-2775, this is 1620 Agri-Fria, Romero final subdivision. It is, you guys considered this not long ago. This is a final subdivision plat for 7 single-family lots at 1620 Agri-Fria. It's zoned R5 and it's approximately 1.47 acres. As discussed in the preliminary subdivision hearing, these are, there's an existing home and then new lots will be created. They will all access the street Prudencio, which will be built as part of Dos Acequias. And there's not a whole lot new to say here. I will keep my presentation very short, let the applicant speak. I would like to address one thing very late in the process here, and I'm gonna share my screen. Give me a moment. Very late in the process, the engineer for this subdivision contacted me with a couple of concerns over some of the wording. So I would like to suggest on condition number 2, he was correct in saying, the condition that they construct a right turn deceleration lane being completed prior to final recordation didn't make sense. That was just some standard language that stayed in there. We'd like to change that to prior to CO or a certificate of occupancy of any of the homes there. And then also conditions 4 and 5 have to do with the sidewalks and the bike lane that they are proposing to build. And the applicant is showing currently 4-foot sidewalks and a 4-foot bike lane. And the reason for that is that that's what exists on all the surrounding properties. Basically, the bike lane along Agri-Fria is 4 feet. Most of the sidewalks are 5 feet. I spoke earlier today with both their engineer, MPO, and our city terrain management engineer, Dee Beingessner, about this. And basically, everybody felt more strongly about having a 5-foot sidewalk for meeting ADA requirements and just to set a precedent that, the next application down the line, someone else on Agri-Fria says, well, hey, you gave them 4-foot sidewalks. And then on the bike lane, MPO felt that a 4-foot bike lane was probably sufficient, seeing as how that's what it is on the rest of the street or on Agri-Fria. Long story short, and we can certainly return to this in the question and answer session, but just for right now, staff is suggesting striking conditions 4 and 5 and replacing them with a new condition of approval that simply says the applicant shall work with MPO and engineering on a mutually agreeable configuration for the bike lane and sidewalk prior to signature sheet process. Again, we can certainly return to this, but I just wanted to go ahead and cover that here in my presentation. And with that, I'll I'll just leave it at that and let the applicant's agent speak.
And so you wanted to change number 2 though, right?
Number 2, yes, Chairman. The only change to that would be the
Prior to CO.
Yes, correct.
On the right-hand column. Okay, and then the language you suggested on 4 and 5. All right.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Logston.
Sure.
Yes. Oh.
Sharing screen. Sorry.
Get off my screen. Ms. Vihil, welcome.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
I am here. I'm just, let me start my video. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
I'm going to
Thank
go
you
ahead and
for
swear
having
you in.
this.
Dolores, I need
Yes,
to swear
of
you in.
course.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. My
Thank you.
name's
Please state your
Dolores Vihil, Liaison Planning Services, PO Box 1835, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87504. Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Logston, and I appreciate you making that part of the record because that was a question that we had, and it makes more sense that it would be built prior to CO than prior to recordation, because that would be very difficult for the applicants to achieve. We really don't have any more comments, but we're here to answer any questions you may have. I know that the applicants are here somewhere. I don't know if you let them in, Noah, but I did talk to them earlier and they don't have any other questions or comments. So I'd like to just open it up to questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the opportunity for the public hearing section for this matter. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to be heard in the public hearing? If so, you need to identify yourselves by raising your hand. I don't see any telephone calls, Noah.
That's correct, Chair.
And I don't see anybody interested in testifying. So going once, twice, sold. Public hearings closed. Questions from the commissioners? I see none. Commissioner Satania. Oh, I'm sorry, Vice Chair Hogan.
I was going to make a motion, but if that was the same.
No, I was playing with Commissioner Satania. Commissioner Hogan, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move approval of case 2020-2775, 1620 Agri-Fria Street, Romero final subdivision, with the conditions of approval as also with the recommended amendments provided by staff, both amendment number 2 and the condition of approval 4 and 5. So
and the findings of fact?
And the findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Commissioner Clow seconds.
Any further discussion? Melissa?
Commissioner Clow,
Yes.
Commissioner Faulkner,
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia,
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez,
Yes.
Commissioner Hogan,
Yes.
Commissioner Lawrence,
Yes.
Commissioner Satania.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Vihil, and please.
Thank you. Merry Christmas, everyone. Stay safe.
Congratulate your clients for us too, please.
I sure will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too. Staff communications.
Chair, Commissioners, I don't have any other communications other than I wanted to acknowledge and thank you, Chair Hyatt, for your duty here and your volunteering and everything you contributed, as this is your last meeting, and everything, and really enjoyed working with you personally when I worked in the department, or when you worked in the department, and having you as chair, and look forward to continuing to working with you.
You're really happy that I hired you.
Yep, that too.
Well, thank you all. I appreciate that.
You didn't realize you were leaving so quickly.
Yeah.
I heard we're going out for drinks after this.
Yeah, really. Yeah, and probably to jail after that. Thank you all again. I think I said my thank yous last time, but I appreciate everyone. I've enjoyed working with each of you, and I think you're going to do just fine. I remember when we first came on the commission, Commissioner Hogan and I kind of looked around, and it was an interesting travel, really, but I enjoyed it. Thank you. Matters from the commission. Anybody that has anything else?
More thanks, Jack.
Yep.
You bet.
Thanks, Jack.
You bet.
Good job.
You're all welcome, and I wish you the best of luck and the best of holiday seasons. I mean, I don't know how you feel, but we're not having a Christmas. I've done my Christmas shopping. We're wrapping tomorrow, and that's it. Not boom, boom, but wrapping the presents. All right, Melissa, thank you for everything. I appreciate it.
All right.
When Melissa reviewed, first time I looked at her minutes, she said, "Oh, you're just like a lawyer," Okay, sorry. All right, without further ado, let's adjourn this meeting and have a good holiday.
Happy
Merry
holidays.
Christmas.